All right, so you guys are here for Masterclass Premiere Pro tutorial part 2. If you have not checked out part 1, click right here. And if you don't want it, you feel you don't need it, you're good, even better. We're talking about sequence and timeline and everything you need to know within there. Let's go. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is create a sequence. Now, what is a sequence? It pretty much is a collection of clips that you have edited together in an arrangement and have put effects on, you have added different layers, etc. in order to, at the end, you're going to export that sequence of clips into your final video. Now, it's also commonly known as a timeline, and I feel like a lot of people interchange them, but you work within your sequence and you have a timeline of events that occur. So, how to create a sequence? There's multiple ways. The first way is you can come up to File, New, and hit Sequence, and it's going to pop up this box for you, and it's going to look daunting at first with all of these presets, but unless you're looking for a very specific preset, I would come over to Settings, come to Editing Mode, and hit Custom, and then go through, and there's plenty of settings such as frame rate, your frame size, etc. that you are going to go through and customize based off of what you want your sequence to come from. And for right now, we're going to hit cancel. You can also come down what looks like a piece of paper with a folded corner, and you can hit what is called new item, come up to sequence, and it's going to pop that same box up to you. You can come over here and you can hit Control or Command on a Mac and hit Control N, and that's going to pop up that box as well. Or what I find the easiest, but you have to be careful of, is you can take some of your clips here. So we'll take, let's say, Elephant 1, and we're gonna click, drag, and drop that into the timeline and sequence workspace. Now, if you notice when I did that, it drops that video clip in here. It creates a sequence called Elephant 1, and up here in our project window, it's going to create a file called Elephant 1, and as you can see, it has a little sequence icon. Now, the big thing to note when you do drag clips from your project window into the timeline and sequence window is that your sequence settings are going to take on whatever video you drug in there. So for instance, in this case, we have a 120 frames per second video. So when I drug this video in here, it automatically created a sequence with a frame rate of 120 frames per second. But if you wanted to change that, it's very easy. You can come over, click in your sequence window workspace, then you can come up to sequence settings, and this allows you at any time throughout your editing process to change your sequence settings, whether that be your frame size, your time base, etc. So the next thing we're going to dive into is the actual sequence and timeline and some features within there. So to start off, we have what is called video and audio tracks. We have our video 1 track, 2, 3, and we have our audio track 1, audio 2 track, audio 3 track. And sometimes they call them layers. It kind of is interchangeable as far as the terms go, but when you start getting a lot of clips in there, you're going to want to add more video and audio tracks. And easily this can be done by either, for one thing, just dragging a new file in, and as you can notice, you can choose where it's going to fall in what track, or you can just come over and put it above and below, and it's going to create a new track for you. Or what you can do is right click, come down, add tracks, and this is going to allow you to add any amount of video tracks and any amount of audio tracks that you would like. So let's just say we want to add 3 of each, hit OK, we have new video and audio tracks. Now, some things to note, let's look at video tracks first, is we have this eye icon, which I'm going to call the visibility icon, but they call it the toggle track output. Pretty much what this does is when you toggle this off, it's going to put a slash through it, and that pretty much turns that whole video track off, so it's invisible, you can't see it. And the nice thing about this is, let's say we put in another clip over here and we're editing this top clip, but we want to see the bottom clip. You can easily come over here and turn off that whole track, and you can see the clip below it. So the next thing we're talking about is these V1, V2, and V3 symbols, and pretty much what these do is when you copy and paste, or there's some tools where you can actually insert clips in, this is going to denote where those clips are being inserted as far as what track they're being inserted in. So right now we have V1 selected. So if I were to, let's say, Control C and copy this clip, and I were to then paste this clip in there, it's going to paste it in this video track 1 slot, and then it's going to go from top to bottom, and it's going to paste it in audio track 1. So if you notice, it overwrote my original clip because it pasted it in those two toggle points. So let's undo that. If we were then, let's say, to select video 4 and unselect video 1, unselect these, and let's select maybe audio 5 track, and we were then to paste it in, you notice it pastes in whatever tracks we have selected. And this just allows you when you're editing to not overwrite other clips, because you can denote where you want your clip to be pasted into or inserted into. The last thing we're talking about with video tracks is going to be this little lock icon here. And when you click this, you are locking that whole track. And as you can see, it kind of grays it out, meaning no edits at all can happen in this track. So I can't do anything to this track. I can't move it, I can't delete it, I can't add effects to it. And this is extremely nice because when you start dealing with a bunch of clips and you put some clips in a track that you are done with and you just don't want to touch or don't want to accidentally overwrite, you can easily lock that track, and you know it's not going to get accidentally overwritten by another clip. So dropping down into audio tracks here, we have a few different things and a few same things. So we've already talked about the locking icon, which you can do separately from the video tracks. You have your toggle tracks where it's going to insert. That's different from the video as well. We have an M here, which is going to mute the whole track. So you can easily just go through and mute all these tracks if you don't want the audio from those tracks. Or if you have a bunch of audio files and you want to solo one out, you can hit this little icon and it's only going to play the audio from this track. Next thing we're talking about is the playhead. And the playhead is this little blue type icon here. And pretty much what happens is this playhead is what you are going to use when you're playing your video and scrolling through your video footage. So if you notice, when you hit spacebar, it's going to play your video, and this playhead is going to move, showing you where along in your sequence you are and where at in that current video clip you are. So in this video clip, we are currently right here scrolling along. So when you're editing, some nice things to know is, let's say our playhead is getting close to the end here. And you're going to notice that when it hits the end, it's going to jump. And this is called, I believe, page scroll. So as you're watching your video, your playhead is kind of scrolling through your timeline, and then once it hits the end, it's going to jump to where it's going to show you the next chunk of time on your sequence, which can sometimes be nice, but to be honest, it's really nice to know what's in front and what's behind my playhead. So I recommend coming up into Edit, Preferences, going down into Timeline, and going over to Timeline, Playback, Auto Scrolling. And instead of Page Scroll, come down into Smooth Scroll and hit OK. Now what's going to happen is, you notice when I play my timeline, my playhead is going to stay in the center of my timeline, and I'm going to be able to see what's coming in front of my playhead and what's coming behind my playhead. Now this does not mean that I can't move my playhead to the left side or the right side. It's just only when I play the video clip that I can actually see what's coming and what's actually already been played. It's just kind of a helpful tip that I recommend. So going along with the playhead here, say you're editing the music and you have some beats and you want to mark where those beats are. Well, as your as your playhead is scrolling across the screen, you can easily hit M on your keyboard, and it's going to create these marker icons up here above your timeline here. And you can create as many as you'd like. And when you're satisfied, you can actually come up, right click, and you can go and you can actually edit the marker, and you can name it, you can create a comment with it, you can change the color, etc. And this is going to organize and help you go back to your footage and understand why you made that marker. Some easy ways to get in between markers is you can hit Shift M to go to the next marker, which actually I have a marker down here on my clip, as you can tell, or you can hit Control Shift M and it's going to go backwards markers. If you would like to delete a marker, you can go to that marker and hit Control Alt M and it's going to delete that marker. Or if you would like to delete all the markers on your timeline, you can hit Control Alt Shift M and it'll clear all the markers. Now, how to get a marker on your video track such as I have here is all you do is as your playhead is scrolling through, make sure you have that video selected, and when you hit M, it's gonna put that marker on that video clip, whether it's below the actual video that you're watching or it's the current video you're watching. And the way to actually get to these markers, which we're gonna go over in another tutorial as far as workspaces, but you can easily double click on your video, and if you notice, it's going to bring you over into what's called the source monitor, and you'll see your markers under this little timeline, which is denoted by your specific clip, and this is where you can easily go in and edit those specific markers as well. So the next thing we're going to be going over is the timeline and sequence editing tools and little tips and tricks to kind of speed up the editing process when you're working in your sequence. So the first thing to mention is that if you do not see these editing tools over here, please come up to Window, come down and make sure Tools is selected. And you should see these icons. And so the first thing we're going to be talking about is the selection tool, which is this little arrow right here, and it can easily be accessed by hitting V on your keyboard. So if you have a different tool selected, hit V and you have the selection tool. And this is just as it sounds. You select your clip, you can move, drag it, etc. The next thing we're going to be talking about is what I call snap. And snapping, actually I don't call it snapping, that's what it's called, snapping. But snapping is turned on and off by hitting S. And as you notice when I do that, this little magnet icon turns on and off. So if it's blue, it's on. If it's white, it's off. And what snapping does is it allows your clips to snap to each other or snap to the playhead. So when it's off, it's really hard for me to tell when exactly these two clips are butted ends without me overriding a clip or not being exactly next to that clip. But if we were to turn snapping on, you notice that my clips snap directly to the butt of each other, so I know that there's no gaps in between. It's super nice because I can also take another clip here, and let's say I want it at my playhead, it easily snaps to my playhead as well. So the next thing we're talking about here is deleting gaps. And just as snapping is as fast as coming and dragging your clips in, you can also select clips that aren't even there in between other clips. So for instance, I can select the blank space in between these two clips, hit delete, and it's going to delete that blank space, butting my two clips ends together. So this is kind of like another way of snapping, but it's usually just a little quicker because you can easily just select, delete, select, delete, select, delete instead of having to drag all your clips to snap. So the next tool we're talking about is the Tracked Select tool. And this tool is obtained by hitting either this icon right up here or by hitting A on your keyboard. And what this tool is wherever you click where your mouse is located, it's going to select all the clips to the right of your mouse. So as you can see, the arrows are pointing to the right. So if I were to click here, it's going to select all my clips from that point over to the right in my sequence. And I can drag them and I can move them, etc. Just the same, if you hit Shift A, it's going to switch that icon to the left. So all the clips I select when I click to the left of that icon are going to select, and I can move those. So for instance here, if I only select this, you notice that this right clip, the far right clip, isn't selected because the video does not underlie from where I clicked, or it is not to the left of those arrows. So then I only move these left two. Where if I was over here and I selected maybe these, now I just moved the right two. So it's a quick and easy way to kind of make a little gap for a clip if you need to insert a clip here, or if you want to move your whole sequence to the right so you have some extra editing workspace right here. The next thing is the cut tool. And the cut tool, or the razor tool, is accessed by just hitting C on your keyboard. And pretty much this is going to allow you to then hover over all your clips and cut them where you so desire. And then you can hit V and you can select your cut clips, and it's pretty much splitting the clips. So the next tool we're talking about is the ripple edit tool, and it can be accessed by coming down below your selection tool and hitting this icon, or hitting B on your keyboard. And the best way for me to explain this is, as you can see here, we have our clip starting here and we have our clip ending here, and it's in between two clips here. But let's say we want to edit this super quick and super easy, and we want it to maybe start right here instead. Well, with this ripple edit tool, you can come down to the beginning or the end of your clip, and you can click and drag it to your new location. And what it's going to do is it's going to start your clip at a different time, but it's going to delete the blank space that would normally be there, so your clips are still all together. So as you see, when I let go of this, no gap is in here, as if I were to just drag and start my clip at a different time, because it deleted that. But as you notice now, the start of my clip is where I wanted it to actually start. And this goes for the end too. You can also ripple edit the end, so you cut off the end, and it's going to then move this clip after it, still butting ends to the other clip. It's pretty much deleting the blank space that would be there. Just a super easy, helpful tool when you're editing in between clips. So the next tool is what is called the rolling edit tool, and it can be located under the selection tool, but what you're gonna have to do is click and hold and come down and hit rolling edit tool, or you can hit N on your keyboard, and when you hit N, it pops up. And similar to the ripple edit tool, the rolling edit tool is going to then affect both the first clip and the second clip. So when I click on the space, not the space, but when I click on the two butt ends where my clips meet and I drag left or right, it is going to either shorten whatever clip I'm dragging into and increase the other clip, or vice versa. So if you notice, let's say I want to cut this first clip a little shorter because I want this clip to start a little earlier, I can drag it over, and what it's gonna do is it shortened this first clip, but it started and increased this clip at a different location. So for instance here, let's say we want a little bit more of the elephant at the end here, but we don't like the beginning of this. We wanna maybe start it closer to the hands here. I can click, hold, drag, and you notice that now my second clip starts where the hands are, and I get a little bit more of my last clip because that's what we wanted. So once again, it's a very helpful tool to edit between two clips that are butted ends together when you have a huge sequence and timeline instead of moving clips around. So the next tool we're talking about is the rate stretch tool, which can be accessed below the selection tool by clicking, holding, and coming down, or by hitting R on your keyboard. And pretty much this is just going to increase the length of your clip or decrease the length of your clip. And what that means is that when you increase the length of your clip, you are pretty much slowing down your clip. So as you notice, it's saying 34.93%, meaning that your clip speed is actually now about 35% of what it originally was. So it's kind of going into slow-mo. And that's going to kind of depend on your frame rates, whether that's going to work or not. But if you were to squish your clip, meaning decrease the length of your clip, what's going to happen is it's going to speed the clip up. And so now, if I were to maybe zoom in here, hopefully it'll tell me, it's saying that my clip is 210.36%, meaning that it's 210% faster than the original clip itself. So it's actually way faster, and as you can tell by the video clip there. The next tool is the pen tool, which is located right here. And if you click and hold, you also have a rectangle and ellipse tool. Or you can hit P on your keyboard to bring it up. And this is just going to allow you to draw graphics over your clip. And you can change the color. And if you come down, click, and then go V, you can also move it around just to add a little bit to your clip here. So the next tool we're talking about is the slip tool, which can be found right here, or you can hit Y on your keyboard to bring it up. And to kind of explain this better, I've created two markers on this clip, a red and a green one. And what the slip tool is going to do is, if your clip is not the full clip, so say you took a chunk of a original clip, and it might be in the middle, it might be towards the end, but you have some video in front of it and some video behind it that you have cut off, but you want to access that video very easily and very quickly, you can easily click on your video and slide it, and it's going to slide it 152 frames to the right, but it's actually not going to physically move the clip in the timeline. All it's doing is, if you notice, it shifted the video over 152 frames because we had an extra 152 frames that we had cut off. Now, if we were to slide it to the left, we are deleting 435 frames, and we're actually shifting the clip to a further time within the original video file. And so it's easy to just kind of move it around if you need to gain some of what you've already split or cut off from your original clip. So the next tool is the slide tool, and the slide tool can be found next to the slip tool by clicking, holding, and going down, or by hitting U on your keyboard. And the slide tool is just as it sounds. You pretty much can slide the video left or right, and what it's going to do is it's just going to overwrite the video next to it. So as you can see, that second video is getting shorter as I slide to the right. The next tool is the hand tool, which can be hit by right here or by hitting H, and this just allows you to move in your timeline, especially very helpful when you're zoomed in. It allows you to kind of scroll without having to move your actual playhead. Along with that, we have what is called the zoom tool, which is by clicking on the hand and coming down to the zoom tool, or by hitting Z on your keyboard. It's going to default to zoom in, so if you click, you're going to zoom in on your timeline. Or if you hold Alt, it's going to hit the minus sign, and then you can click while holding Alt and you will zoom out of your timeline. The last tool we have is the type tool, which is this big T here, and if you click on it, and then you can come up to your video and click, and it is going to allow you to type something. Come down, click in the workspace here, and then hit V to hit your selection tool, and this is going to allow you to then move your title. So the last thing we're going to discuss is extra add-ons, or what is called new items, that you can add in your sequence and timeline directly from Premiere Pro. So if you come back over here where there's a new way to create a sequence, this little piece of paper with a folded corner, it's a new item, you can click on it. And not only can you create a new sequence, but you can also create what are called adjustment layers. You can create bars and tones, black videos, color matte. And so to demonstrate a few here, we'll create, let's say, a color matte and an adjustment layer. So an adjustment layer we can create, it's going to ask us for our video settings, which you normally, in most cases, match with whatever your sequence settings are. Hit OK, and it's going to create this file up here in your project window, which then you can come, drag over, and drop in your timeline. And this adjustment layer, basically, though we have not gotten into edits, any edit or any effect that you apply to this adjustment layer will apply to all the clips below it. So if we had a few clips that were stacked on top of each other, this adjustment layer would apply to every single clip below. So it's super helpful, instead of having to add an effect to every clip, to just add it to an adjustment layer, and it applies to all of them. You can also come down and create, let's say, a color matte, which is going to ask you for video settings again. It's going to ask you for the color that you would like. You can hit OK. It'll ask you for a name, and it's going to plop this file over here. And you can drag it on over, drop it in, and then you've created a color matte, the same video settings as your sequence. And so I suggest that you come in, you mess around with a few of these, see what they are, but they're just some new items that you can actually create for your sequence and timeline within Premiere Pro without actually having to import a video that you have created yourself.
All right, so I hope you guys learned something from this video. If you did, please like, please subscribe. Let me know what you liked about it, along with what you didn't like about it. Because that's how I learned, that's how you guys learn, that's how I make better tutorials. Along with that, stay tuned for next week, part 3, where we're gonna be going into workspaces, how to customize it, how to save it, how to fit it to your needs, along with viewing windows, everything you need to know about viewing windows to help your workflow better, pretty much. With that, I will talk to you guys and see you guys next time. Peace.